If you understand the truth behind the Christmas story, you're going to find out that the whole thing is wrong. Why are there, among other things, Christmas lights on the tree? Well, candles were lit that was actually used as a beacon to the winter god, so that during the evenings he would see those lights fly over and come around your house and bless the people inside of the house in your home for welcoming him back in. This is why the candles were used, and to this very day we're still using these seasonal lights. We've got electric lights, so we've modernized the practice of welcoming back the Stag God. We put them around the tree, we'll put them in the windows, and we have these massive displays outside, in which these lights, according to the ancient occult practice now, is supposed to welcome back onto the earth the winter god. Now, part of the practice of Christmas is hanging, first of all, is the Yule Log fire. Now this, the log inside of it is referred to as the Yule Log. Now it's not called Yule for no reason at all. Remember, this is December 21st, the human night sacrifice of Yule. Now tradition teaches us in the occult that first of all, the Yule log should be made out of birch. Once it has been lit and used for the holidays, you're supposed to keep one part of the birch log or the Yule log and set it aside for next year. Why you do this is because you're supposed to take that piece of the Yule log from last year and light this year's Yule log. This way, it's a constant cycle. You take from the old, give to the new keeps rekindling itself over and over again. This, symbolically speaking, is the cycle of reincarnation, because every year you welcome back into your home by lighting the Yule log, the god of the winter known as the Stag God, or originally known as Nimrod. Now, what could possibly be so ungodly about kissing underneath the mistletoe? Well, there's a couple things wrong with this, first of all. One thing I will warn you about, people, whatever you do, never touch those berries. 3 of them could kill you. This plant is so poisonous. Among other things that's wrong with it, mistletoe itself was very sacred to the Druids. It was a fertility plant. This was a very sacred plant to the Druids, from which the Illuminati claimed direct ascendancy from. They claimed to be the modern-day Druids, or the modern-day rendition of the Druids. And it's because this is a fertility plant that people kiss underneath it. We have another fertility plant known as the wreath. We make a Christmas wreath. It's green and red, and you will constantly find green and red throughout the Christmas season, because in the occult world, those are the 2 colors that are used for this season. And for every season, they do have specific colors that's used for their occult magic and occult belief system. Now, the wreath itself is always circular if they're an occult practitioner, and there will always be candles in the center of it. The reason this is so, as I said before, this is another fertility symbol. The candle or candles represent the male phallic symbol. The circle represents the female reproductive organs. This is why it is symbolically speaking, a fertility symbol. And this is something, symbolically speaking, we have a circle here, that are the wreaths, that represents reincarnation. In other words, the life, the birth, and the death of the Stag God every single year. over the Christmas fire, you know, the Yule Log fire, well, we hang Christmas stockings. Stockings have, you know, according to the ancient practices, is where presents were left, not for the person to get, but they were supposed to leave presents there for the Yule God, for the Stag God to take. But we've reversed it, and supposedly now those are there for our benefits. People will put small gifts and items in them, and if Santa Claus determines you're bad, you get, you know, charcoal put in them instead, you know. Now, of course, we have another fertility symbol here. This one is the holly. These are holly berries. And again, this is another sacred plant in the Illuminati. They still worship this as one of the more sacred plants. It's another fertility symbol. As I said before, these are the holly berries. And, of course, there is, from the old country, the person known as the Holly King. Okay? It's from the Holly King, the whole story's behind the Holly King and such, where eventually another person comes into play. From the Holly King, you get who's known as Santa Claus. Now, Santa Claus is an interesting study because, you know, through Santa Claus, the Illuminati has tried to prove that they are like gods on the earth. What the? The Illuminati has tried to prove that they are like gods on the earth through the myth. Now, when we go through the story of Santa Claus is actually supposed to be all-knowing. I mean, think about this. Doesn't Santa Claus know who's been good and who's been nice every single day of the year? What the? That's one of Santa Claus's ability. He knows exactly who's been good and who's been nice, and he knows how this has worked for each individual throughout the year. Well, Santa Claus has the ability of being omnipresent, or just about, because on the night of Christmas, is he not able to traverse the entire world and literally just about be everywhere at the same time and drop off who knows how many billions of presents? Well, at least that's what the story tells us. Santa Claus, his sleigh, if you notice, is pulled by 8 reindeers. Now these are commonly known as stags. This is why, if you notice very quickly, people, Santa Claus is just another representation of the Stag God. And it's for 8 reindeers. 8 for no reason at all. You see, 8 is the only number that if you put it on its side becomes an occult symbol, which is the number for infinity, or the act of reincarnation throughout the year. In this case, Santa Claus. Santa's little helpers, and this is what really kills me, you know. Rather than own up to the truth, what we've done here in America, well, we've given them a cute little look. You know, well, these are just little helpers dressed in green and red, and they help Santa throughout the year, you know, making toys and whatnot. But you see, the traditions of most of America, of most of the holidays, come from Europe. And the true elves of Christmas were very horrible, evil little creatures. They went around and caused mischief for everyone or anyone who came across them. The ancient traditions and pictures do not lie. They point out to us that the traditional elves were nothing but small, demonic, imp-like creatures who caused anyone trouble who came across their paths. And there's a very interesting elf that you'll find in Scotland. It's around Argyll. This is a giant wooden elf. And if you notice, it is anything but a cutesy little, warm, fuzzy little creature. This is a horrible, evil-looking creature. And that's what they were all about. Elves, only became, cutesy once we decided to try to dress up the occult practice of Yule and call it Christmas and make it something palatable. Now, here we have one of the ancient depictions of the Stag God. It's one of the few bronze reliefs that we still have. You notice he has the horns as a stag, and he has this bracelet here and other things that denote him as the Stag God. But the question that we need to ask is this the birthday of Christ? Was Christ born on December 25th? And if not, whose birthday is it? Picking it up, chapter 2, verse 8, it says, and this is very important, and there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. Now, there are shepherds out in the field right now, and they're watching over the flock. I have spoken to many Jewish friends of mine and to rabbis I've known about this passage. My friends who have lived on kibbutzes have told me that the sheep that shepherds watch over in the fields around that part of Judea and such, the sheep are never brought out of the field until the end of September, and they say usually no later than the second week of October, because it gets too cold out there for the sheep to survive in. So it's around that time of the year that they will bring the sheep in. And the rabbis have told me a similar story. They all say right around that same time. That's the time of the year when they bring the sheep in. It's not after October or, the middle. It's not after that. It's before it, and usually that is somewhere around the end of September or around the beginning to the mid part of October. There is also a major Roman festival at that time on December 25th known as Saturnalia. Saturnalia was a big festival in which, there would be these huge parades of people going through the cities and to the heart of Rome. They would be dressed in their finest outfits, and they would be bringing offerings and gifts and everything. And there'd be, a lot of wine drinking. There'd be ham and birds being served as parts of the banquet. And gifts were actually being given to all the people, and there was a lot of wine and merriment. Well, you know what? The same thing goes on to this very day. Aren't we given, these Christmas gift offerings, and aren't we, still having the Christmas ham, and aren't we giving gifts to one another? And don't we still have, these long Christmas parades? I think they're called, they're in New York and other places. We have these huge parades. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, Saturnalia is still being practiced to this very day on December 25th, except all we've done is candy coat it, we've Christianized it, and we've called it Christmas.
What the?
So the question then becomes, if it wasn't the Lord's birthday, whose birthday was it? Semiramis and Nimrod had a child known as Tammuz. And Tammuz was supposed to be the reincarnation of Nimrod because he had been killed. Now, Tammuz's birthday, according to the ancient records and everything, Tammuz was born on December 25th. Now, according to occult practice, remember, Yule is the night of December 21st. It's the longest winter night for the year. And it is on this day that a night of human sacrifice occurs. What had happened, in order to marry this new movement of Catholicism into paganism, they took December 21st, moved it up to December 25th, the birthday of Tammuz. This is whose birthday we're celebrating. This is one of the most ancient and one of the few beliefs we have of the god known as Tammuz. And it really saddens me to think that somehow we've allowed this pagan god to be deified and allowed to be the god of Christmas. We, instead of having absolutely nothing to do with this pagan occult festival, we're actually worshiping the ancient god known as Tammuz. I think by now, and I don't think I have to go any further into this, I think it's quite obvious just from the biblical perspective alone. We have absolutely nothing to do with these occult practices because they are occult practices. They're nothing that we should be involved in. God said, learn not the way of the heathen. And over in Corinthians, he strictly tells us not to go after the traditions of men, because that's all these are. We should have absolutely nothing to do with any of these occult holidays. And yeah, it might appear as if I'm being a stick in the mud here, because let's face it, these holidays are alluring. I mean, come on, we get presents, you know, and, you know, we sometimes get to choose what presents we want, even though we're not supposed to, you know, but so it's very alluring because, as I've told people time and time again, there is a beautiful side to evil, and it's a very, very seductive one. It will twist and distort your reasoning and deceive you into believing that these things are indeed Christians, but they are not. So I'm going to leave it up to you, ladies and gentlemen, because let's face it, you are responsible for this knowledge now. It's between you and God, but I would tell you right now, I would get rid of this occult practice as soon as I could, because the longer you allow it to stay in your life, the harder it is for you to get rid of it.